All right, welcome into Business Express. It's a Monday. Yes, indeed. Another week has begun. The 16th day of February 2026. It is 32 minutes past 6 a.m. A beautiful Monday morning, a hot Monday morning, I need to add. It was really hot before I left the house this morning. And I couldn't wait to get into the air conditioning to cool my head and get me ready to dive into the show. My name is Ayokunmi KK. It's a beautiful time to be on the radio to talk about the world of business, brought to you by IntoSwitch. This is Business Express. And on the show today, we'll be looking at price levels in Nigeria. And can we call them stable? Some analysts actually expect flat inflation figures for January following the festive period. We also have a 380%, yes, 380% jump in capital importation into Nigeria in the third quarter of 2025 compared to the same period in 2024. And we do have a guest to break it all down and give us some sense of everything. Joining me this morning to talk about this is Precious Bajogun. She's an investment research analyst with P.A.C Research. Precious, good morning to you. Welcome into the show once again.
Good morning, Ayo. It's good to be here once again.
Always a pleasure having you on the show to talk about these particular issues. And you out there can join us this morning on WhatsApp and on YouTube as well. The WhatsApp number is 0911 999 0981 0911 That is the WhatsApp number to send your messages to. You can also join the live stream on YouTube. You can find us at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. All right, Precious, getting right into the nitty-gritty of the matter this morning.
All right.
How exactly would you describe price levels in Nigeria at this time? Is stable the right word to actually use?
Um, I would describe price levels as elevated, but not stable. It's
Okay.
it's still elevated, but it's moderating, not stable. Stability implies that the prices of things have fallen, but what we are seeing instead is a slowing down in the pace of increase, not an outright halt. So at 15% headline inflation, prices are still rising year on year, just not as aggressively as in prior periods. So inflation measures the rate at which prices increases, and the rate at which prices is increasing right now is moderating. So prices are still high, but it's just the pace of increase that has slowed down. So for households though, what matters is not just the inflation rate, but the absolute price level. But many essential items still remain expensive, especially than when we are looking at it compared to 2 years ago. So from a technical
Mm,
standpoint, inflation is decelerating, but from a consumer standpoint, there's still pressure remaining.
mm. I don't know. It just seems to be on one hand, it's
Yeah.
here. On the other hand, it's like, the opposite kind of, which is actually very unusual. But can we dig a bit, a little bit more into the factors that have actually contributed to the price levels that we've seen so far?
Okay, so the very first one would be exchange rates. Even with the current FX liquidity improvement and the stability in FX rate, the earlier depreciation continues to feed into imported group in goods pricing. Nigeria is still very dependent on imports, especially for
Mm,
fuel, machinery, medicine, pharmaceuticals, and
okay.
food inputs. So yeah, even with the stability I was saying in FX rates, exchange rates right now, the earlier depreciation last year and the years prior still continues to affect goods levels.
Okay, interesting perspective here. Now, let me bring
Yeah.
back in the inflation rates because you alluded to it earlier on. In December, we saw headline inflation at about 15%. Now,
Yeah.
some analysts actually expect no change for the January numbers, but what are your expectations?
Um, January is a very interesting month because it's usually described as a transition month, right? From
Okay.
the
Yeah.
holiday demand
Mm,
into like a whole new year. And post holiday demand can soften at this period. which may reduce price pressures. However, businesses usually adjust prices in January in order to reflect the accumulated costs they incurred in December. Then FX and fuel adjustments too.
Yeah.
They can also feed through price levels. So usually, currently, analysts expect no change. So inflation may actually remain around 15%, but my best guess would be that if it's not flat, it would edge just a little bit higher.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. So, would you say that just a little bit will be very marginal?
Uh, Not really. Just
Mm,
not
just a
really.
smidgen. Okay, I'm just trying to
Yeah, just a
have
little margin.
a very clear idea of what the numbers might be and how much of an effect that it will have. But I mean, from what you said, it doesn't
Yeah,
seem like it'll be that intense. Okay, now
yeah.
let me dig deeper into my bag of curiosity here and
Mm.
talk about election. Well, we are kind of in election season already, even though many people do not want to admit it, but there's a lot going on in terms of looking ahead to 2027.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you think that election spending ahead of the 2027 polls could actually impact the inflationary numbers?
Historically, if you look at things, election cycles are usually associated with increased fiscal spending, higher liquidity, and the injection of cash into the informal economy. So, if spending increases significantly without corresponding with production, like output growth, it can create demand pull inflation. So, pouring or injecting cash into the economy without the supply matching the demand can
Yeah.
create that inflation. So there are two caveats. The effect depends on the scale and the timing. Also, if monetary authorities they can curb excess liquidity effectively, then the inflationary impact can be moderated. So yes, there is inflation risk, but it is conditional if only the supply can match the demand.
Well, we can only hope that the supply actually matches um,
Yeah.
the demand because we've been talking about the inflationary numbers actually easing. We don't want um another spike taking things
Yeah,
up a notch.
exactly.
Okay, let's move to capital importation proper here. Now, we got
Mm,
new data from the Bureau of Statistics that total capital importation into Nigeria surged to about $6.01 billion, and that was for the third quarter of 2025,
125, yeah.
compared to $1.25 billion recorded in the same period of 2024.
2024.
What do you make of this increase?
So a 380% year-on-year increase is very, very huge.
Very.
But it also suggests one, there's improved FX market confidence. There are attractive domestic yields, especially with regards
Okay.
to interest rates. Then better liquidity conditions. Well, let's be honest, the financial market last year in Nigeria was a huge one. It was very good. Um, but then composition of this capital importation is very critical. If portfolio investment dominates, that reflects just short-term yield-seeking capital, which means people are
Okay.
pouring money in order to gain their profit fast and then exit the market. It can stabilize effects temporarily, but it's also sensitive to global interest rate movements. So the rebound is positive, but sustainability depends on whether Nigeria can convert those short-term flows into longer-term commitments. Yeah.
Right, interesting perspective. But looking at these numbers like $6.01 billion in 2025, 1.25
Yeah.
2024, 380% increase. How does this actually impact people? I mean, capital importation. I mean, should we actually care about these figures? Should we bother? Should we be worried? Should we be happy?
Yeah, we should care because capital influence influences FX stability, the stability we are seeing right now in interest rates. Sorry,
Okay.
in exchange rates, it reflects that. It also influences currency volatility. It influences government financing conditions. So when FX is stable, Imported goods become more predictable in price, which also
Mm,
affects food, it affects medicine, it affects fuel, most of these things that we import usually. So yeah, portfolio flows, however, does not necessarily create jobs and impact the people directly, right? FDI does. FDI is foreign direct
investments.
investment, yes. So while the headline number supports macro stability, the real impact on citizens depends on the quality of inflows and the long-term impact. Like I said, this what we are seeing right now appears to be short-term, and people are just injecting money into the economy to get their short-term gains and then exit the market. So what actually impacts people is the ability to convert those short-term investments into longer um, investments. You know, that's the one, it create jobs. It have more effects. It has more effects on inflation rate. So yeah,
Good stuff. I'm actually glad you mentioned the FDIs because that particular portion recorded the lowest inflow at about
yeah.
$296.25 million. That represented 4.93%. How can we actually improve on this figure?
So FDI investors, they commit long-term capital, like I said. And to do this, they usually assess policy consistency, legal protection, because no investor wants to lose their money. They cannot put their money into places they know that the money would get lost.
Oh, yes.
Infrastructure quality. This is a very big problem because most of the companies that have been leaving Nigeria these days is mostly because of infrastructure. No lights, no fuel, no all of those things. Security also, and then ease of capital repatriation. So Nigeria must prioritize predictability. Investors tolerate risk, but they usually avoid uncertainty. So
Mm,
to do this, you deepen infrastructure investments, strengthen power supply, very important, improve regulatory transparency. So all of these things um, attract foreign direct investors. The goal should be to shift from yield-driven inflows to productivity-driven investment. So yield-driven inflows are short-term, while but in order to convert those short-term into longer-term capital, we need to work on all of these things that I've mentioned.
Everything coming together will make
Yeah,
it make sense. You can't take
exactly.
anything in isolation.
Hmm.
All right. Now, that is some good clarity there. Let me take a message here from Gilbert Musa in Festa. Good morning to you, Gilbert. He says, like your analyst has said, Nigeria still imports foods and medicines, among other things. In May 1976, Operation Feed the Nation's aim was to curb food importation and also increase domestic production of local food crops, which till date, that objective has not been realized. We need to
Yes,
improve on
yeah,
local security for us to achieve sustained domestic production of local food crops. Very well said.
very
Gilbert,
right.
thank you for that message. This is Tayo in Aja texting from a place with no light, but as Precious has alluded to, without power, we're just playing games. And it seems like
I know,
across
right?
Lagos, there has been no power. I don't know what is going on. But Tayo says, it's like we're just living for 90 days in this country. The instability is not good for business. God forbid
No,
some
it's not.
setback happens to
It's not.
Nigeria and we're in for it in terms of exposure. Well, this power issue, I don't know how it's going to be sorted out, but we need to make some headway or else I don't know what it is that we're doing. Anyway, Precious, it's time to wrap up on the show. Any final thoughts you want to just sneak in here before we wrap it up?
Yes, so the lower inflation rate does not like normal consumers say, they think, inflation rate has decreased, so prices of things have decreased. No, prices of things still remain significantly elevated, and
Mm,
what we are seeing right now is just a deceleration in the increase in the rate at which things prices of things are increasing. So it's good to be informed about these things so that we don't. Yeah, that's all.
exactly, and that is precisely why. We have you on the show to explain all these things and give us the much
Yeah.
needed information. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much to you,
Thank you
Precious
so much,
Bajogun.
Aya.
Yes, Precious is an investment research analyst at P.A.C Research. Thank you once again, and do have yourself a great Monday and a great start to your week.
Thank you. You too. Have a nice day.
And you too. Alrighty. Thank you so much for being a part of the show this morning. Has been Business Express brought to you by IntoSwitch on the Smooth Breakfast here on Smooth 98.1. My name is Ayokunmi Kikiri. Stick around. There's more great music coming your way as we journey along to 7:30 and a look at the papers on Freshly Pressed.